Hello, this is Mr. Kenyanola. I'm going to teach you about this shape right here. And this shape is called the rhombus. Or rhombus. The H is silent in most cases, most countries. So it's a rhombus. And the reason why I have these two other shapes is because, well, the parallelogram gave birth to two children. One of its children is the rectangle, and its other child is the rhombus. And so if you watched the previous video about rectangles, you know that the rectangle has two facts, and it also inherits the 5 facts about the parallelogram, because a rectangle is a special type of parallelogram because that's his mom. And the rhombus is also a special type of parallelogram because the rhombus is also the child of the parallelogram. So these 5 facts fall under the rhombus as well. But what makes a rhombus special? What makes him unique and not just a regular old parallelogram and not his sibling, the rectangle? It's what makes a rhombus special. So a rhombus is not a rectangle, so it's not equiangular, but a rhombus is equilateral, the other equi. And if you remember what equilateral means, that means all sides are congruent. So we can put a tick mark here, tick mark here, a tick mark here, and a tick mark here. So if this side was 5, then this side would be 5, this side would be 5, this side would be 5. Unlike a rectangle, not all 4 sides are congruent, only the opposite sides are congruent, as in a parallelogram. But with this rhombus, whatever, all 4 sides are the same. So the opposites and the adjacents are all congruent. Fact number 2. Now this one is a little tricky one. So I'm going to in order for you to understand this one, let's draw this right here. Let's draw this line. And what did I just do? We split this rhombus into 2 triangles, and what's true about these 2 triangles? They're congruent. Look at that. Because this side is congruent to this side, this side is congruent to this side. This side is reflexive, and it's congruent to itself. So everything about this triangle is congruent to everything about this triangle. So let's look at this triangle at the top. What kind of triangle is it? It's an isosceles triangle, so we know that this side is congruent to this side, so we can put an arc there. And because this entire triangle is congruent to this exact same triangle, it's just a reflection of it, then this angle is also congruent to this angle, and this angle is also congruent to this angle. So there's base angles in that isosceles triangle, which is congruent to this isosceles triangle. So all 4 of these angles are congruent. So what does this diagonal do? It bisects this big angle. So here's this big angle and cuts it into 2 equal halves, and this diagonal cuts this big angle right here into 2 equal halves. So all 4 halves are congruent. So fact number 2, diagonals bisect angles. Bisect the angles, yeah. So this diagonal bisects that, and then if I took this marker and drew another diagonal like that, yeah, this diagonal is cut this big angle in half. Okay, so we could put 2 arcs here and 2 arcs here, 2 arcs here, and 2 arcs here. So all 4 of these halves are congruent to each other. All 4 of these halves are congruent to each other. Diagonals bisect the angles. And one last fact. Fact number 3 is that the diagonals. So these are facts about diagonals. Diagonals are perpendicular perpendicular. So that means that let's pick this green color, this diagonal. Not only do they bisect each other, okay, because it's a parallelogram, not only do these diagonals bisect the angles right here to cut them in half, these diagonals are also perpendicular. And if you remember what perpendicular means, that means that they make 90-degree angles. So all four of these angles are 90-degree angles. Now, let's zoom out. Look at all this. This may look like just a lot of information. Okay, so the tricky part about this is that a rhombus has its own unique facts. A rectangle has its own unique facts. So remember, a rectangle is equiangular, but a rhombus is equilateral. The diagonals bisect each other, bisect the angles, okay, and the diagonals are perpendicular. Remember, these halves are congruent, but these halves are not congruent to these halves, unlike the rectangle. So that's a big difference. So as you guys are looking at your notes, make sure you can note what's unique to the rectangle and the rhombus. Okay, and remember that the rectangle and rhombus are the children of the parallelogram. So 5 facts. So yeah, a lot to think about. So think about them. All right, so let's do an example. Here is a rhombus. W, X, Y, Z is a rhombus. I'm going to take my red pen. So let's just focus on this part before reading all this other stuff. This is a lot of problems right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's just focus on the rhombus. First off, we know that it's equilateral. So I'm going to put a tick mark, tick mark, tick mark, tick mark. We also know that the opposite angles are all congruent. So, and they're also bisected. So I'm going to put an arc and an arc. Arc and an arc, 2 arcs, 2 arcs, 2 arcs, and 2 arcs. So all 4 of these halves are congruent. All 4 of these halves are congruent. Also, remember that the diagonals are perpendicular. So I'm going to put a big 90 right there. Okay, so that sets my brain up to look out for these things. Okay, I haven't even read the rest of the problem, but knowing that it's a rhombus, my brain is focused on these things. These are hints that I'm giving myself. All right, so WB is 6 yards. WB, 6. I'm going to put a 6 right here. And it says ZY is 10 yards. ZY is 10 yards. Okay, so I'm going to put a 10. And then angle WZB is 37 degrees. If we're going to put the degrees there too. So there's that. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's find everything that they're asking us to find. And with these hints that we gave ourselves in the beginning, it should be super helpful to do these now. So angle WXY. So WXY. Now notice WXY. It's asking for this big angle right here. Well, let's see. What do we know? 2 arcs, 2 arcs, 2 arcs, 2 arcs. So we know that this angle is 37 degrees. We know that this angle is 37 degrees, but we know how to read. It's asking for WXY. So this big angle right here, this big angle. So what we're going to do is, if you don't want to mental math it, we're going to take our calculators and put 37 plus 37, which is 74. So this entire angle right here is 74 degrees. Okay, next problem. BYX. So B to Y to X. So this angle right here, BYX. Well, we know that this angle right here is a 90-degree angle, and let's highlight it. So it's a BYX, and we're trying to figure that angle right there. So let's just focus on this blue triangle. We know that the diagonals are perpendicular, so this is 90. We know that this is 37 degrees because all 4 of these angles are 37 degrees. So let's use the triangle sum theorem to figure out what this angle is. Okay, so 90 plus 37 And triangle sum theorem tells us that all three angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So 180 minus 127 is 53 degrees. And I'm going to put it over here, 53 degrees. So there we go. We know that angle W or BYX is 53 degrees. All right, next problem. Angle ZWX. So this is pretty similar to the previous one, to the first problem. We're trying to figure out ZWX, this entire angle. Okay, so notice ZWX, this angle right here, this angle right here, this angle right here. So, well, we know this is 53 degrees. We know this is 53 degrees with the one arcs. Single arcs, this is 53 degrees, this is 53 degrees. So we can conclude if we added this angle plus this angle, it would give us the entire angle. So that would be 106 degrees. Hey, look at that. So let's look at what they're asking for us next. WZ, this angle, the side. It's only two letters, so it's talking about the side. And we know that a rhombus is equilateral. So we know that if you know that this side is 10, or it says in the question, well, we know this side is 10, and this side is 10, and this side is 10. So WZ is also 10 yards. Next one, ZB, Z to the B. That's a tricky one. Okay, so from the beginning it told us that WB is 6. So we have that 6 right here. We have a 10 right here. I'm going to take, and let's just focus on what we have. This 10 and the 6 are both in this triangle right here, this green triangle. And it's asking for the ZB right here. Well, let's focus. Remember, these diagonals are perpendicular, so this is also a right angle. So this is a right triangle. And I'll draw it out here so you guys can visualize it. Here's this, here's this, here's this. And this side is 6, this side is 10. So I just took this chunk and I drew it right here. And it's a right triangle. And we're trying to find ZB. We're going to call it X. Hey, we have two sides of a right triangle. So what can we use? Yep, the Pythagorean Theorem. So this side is 10. 10 squared is equal to 6 squared plus X squared. 10 squared is 100. 6 squared is, don't say 12, it's 36. We're going to subtract 36 from both sides, and that is 64 is equal to X squared. Square root both sides. X is 8. 8. So that means that here, this is 8. So ZB is 8 yards. And the very last one, ZY. Oh, look, we already, yeah, look at that. We already know that's 10 because we wrote 10 because it's equilateral. There you go. So that's a rhombus. That's how you find the parts of a rhombus. So just remember the 3 facts about a rhombus. It is equilateral. All the sides are congruent. The diagonals bisect the opposite angles, so it makes 4 equal halves here and 4 equal halves here. And the diagonals are perpendicular, so it makes 4 right triangles. There you go. That's a rhombus. Hope that helps. Have a great day.